Hello and good morning. Welcome to our presentation on making the best UCAS application. My name's Alex and I work for the Schools and Colleges Liaison team at the University of Derby. We do also have quite a few staff in the background today. You might see them in a bit. So we have a couple of members from our admissions team. So both Lily and Laura, which will be on hand to answer questions, or you may see their responses pop up in the chat as we're going through. A few things that I just want to talk about before we start the presentation, a few housekeeping rules. So the event is being recorded, so as we're going through, do bear that in mind. Hopefully we've seen the Q&A option on the right of your screen in terms of where you can put some questions in. As we're going throughout the presentation, if you do have any questions, put them in. We'll be looking at them in the background. We might even answer them as we're going through, but then we will have some time at the end to answer those questions for you. If you do see a question already in there that you're particularly interested in, hit the like button as well, because what we'll do is we can just see the popular questions as they're coming through, and hopefully we'll get on to answering those towards the end really. So in terms of the presentation, what I'm going to go through is I'm going to look in terms of the UCAS process, so I'm going to cover this quite briefly in terms of what UCAS is, and look in terms of the applying process, different types of offers that you may receive, and the alternative options that are available to you. And then the final aspect that we're going to look at today really is your personal statement. So how you can make your application stand out and hopefully get you that place at your chosen university when you want to start your course. So in terms of UCAS, like I said, I'm going to do a bit of a whistle-stop tour of this. There's a lot of information out there. So if you do have any other questions after today, we've got plenty of stuff on our website under the undergraduate apply section. There's also stuff on the UCAS website as well. But UCAS, so the University and Colleges Admissions Service, they're the central organisation that look after applications for higher education courses. So generally, if you are wanting to go to the university, you would send your application off to them. There's a few considerations to take in as you're applying. So there are some deadlines. On the screen, I've put the main deadline for the majority of applications, which is the 15th of January at 6 o'clock. This does stay the same each year, so regardless of what day of the week it falls on, it will always be the 15th of January, so it's worth just double checking that. There is some other considerations in terms of costs, so you can see I've put a little asterisk below the cost as that is set out for 2021 entry, so if you're wanting to start in September 2021. These things do change each year, so the information that I'm going to go through right now is related to if you are wanting to start in 2021. If you are wanting to start this year, you can still apply, and we'll touch on that in terms of the clearing in a bit. But generally, year on year, the application process stays quite similar, but it's worth just double checking if there have been any changes or any sort of other things that you might want to consider. In terms of applying to universities, you can make up to 5 choices, and we'll sort of talk about that in a bit in terms of how you would notify the universities at. And one final thing to just consider, if you are currently at school or college, check with your tutors, check with your teachers about internal deadlines as well. Just because generally, most schools and colleges, you may have already started it. If you are in year 12 right now, you may have started thinking about UCAS. But they will have an internal deadline that's usually pre-Christmas, just so that it gives them a bit of time to process your application and make sure everything's good and correct before sending it off. In terms of the application process, it is all done online through the UCAS sort of system. As you're going through the process as well, there's help sections and a lot of information in terms of what pieces of information you have to put in certain areas. So it is a really easy and sort of useful process to go through, really. Generally, it's split into these 3 areas. So you'll have a first section around personal details and additional information. So giving details such like your name, address, residential status, if you have any special needs and disabilities, and if you want to sort of indicate your student finance arrangements at that point. The next part will be your course choices and your education so far. So this is where you can put down your choices, so you're up to 5 choices. You don't have to rank them at this point. It's just simply stating, this is where I want you to send my application off to. and also putting down your education so far. So that might be your GCSEs, your level 2 equivalents, A-levels, BTECs, cash qualifications, foundation degrees, access courses, whatever qualifications you're currently studying or have studied in the past, just so that universities can get insight in terms of what academic level you're working at and if you would meet the entry tariff as well. And the final part of the application is your personal statement and reference. So we will touch on your personal statement in a bit more detail later on in this talk. But the reference, this is something which is provided if you're at school or college, either by your teachers or your tutors or your careers advisors. If you are applying individually, it can be a previous employer. It works very similar to how a job application would be. It's just someone to verify what you said and to give a second opinion on that process and what you're going to be like as a potential student at that university. I mentioned entry criteria, and it is an important consideration to have to make sure you make the best UCAS application. When I say entry criteria, I don't just mean, do I need to get 120 UCAS points or do I need to get 3 Bs for the course? Entry criteria is a whole host of different considerations, such as what GCSEs have you currently got. So making sure you've got your 5 GCSEs above a grade C, certainly in English and maths. Also thinking about, does the course have any prerequisites? So, for example, if you're wanting to study psychology, they may say you need to have studied psychology previously and get a certain grade in it. Other things which you may have to consider in terms of entry criteria are things such as, do you have to have a certain amount of work experience? Do you have to pass an interview or submit a portfolio? And they're all considerations which it's important to think about when you're deciding where you want to go and submitting your application, just so that you can meet all of those entry criteria. So hopefully when you send the application off, they can tick through the boxes and say, yes, this student's got all the criteria, we can offer them a place. Once you've sent your application off to universities, they will start coming back with responses. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail in terms of the ins and outs of all of these responses and what it means for yourself, but generally you will get a response back which meets one of these 3 categories. The most common one is a conditional offer, so this is where a university would say, if you get your predicted grades on results day, we will offer you a place. You may get unconditional offers if you are coming back to education, so you've previously got those qualification grades, but also you may receive an unsuccessful offer. I want to reassure you, this doesn't mean that you're a bad person or a bad student. When I applied to university, I applied to 4 universities, I got 2 unsuccessful offers. It just happened to be that the places I applied to, one was oversubscribed, so it was like, unfortunately, we can't offer you a place because we've got too many students interested in the course. And another one, just read through my personal statement, didn't quite feel like I was right for that course. Like I said, it might come back as unsuccessful, you might feel a bit sort of negative about it, but hopefully you do get the other responses back. And it doesn't mean that if you get an unsuccessful response that you can't go to university. It just means that particular option, it might not be possible to go to that one institution. So an important thing to do after you, or sort of not necessarily after you've received your responses, but as you're receiving responses back, is doing further research. I appreciate that in our current situation, this can be a bit difficult. Normally at this point, I would say go to an open day, go to a city, see what it's like, and sort of try and get a feel from it that way. But obviously we're in a situation where you might not be able to do that physically, but certainly attending events like this, talking to academics, talking to current students, trying to find out as much information as possible to help you make those decisions on your responses. Hopefully, before you've applied, you've maybe attended some open days and found some universities that you are interested in, but certainly going back for a second round of research to start comparing them and also to start thinking about the bigger picture. So not just what the course is like, but what is the university like, what are the facilities, what is the city like and the accommodation, and is it somewhere that I can live? Just because it's a bigger picture really in terms of making the best possible choice for where you want to go to university. So do the research, try and get as much information as possible so that hopefully as your responses come back, you can start to think and narrow down potentially those 5 choices down to where you definitely want to go. So once you've received all of your offers back, you can start responding back to say where you want to go or maybe where you don't want to go. So your firm choice, that is your number 1 option, that is where you want to study. You can pick an insurance option, so that is something which you can do as a backup, so if you don't quite get the grades, or maybe it's just a good second choice for you, or you can reject those offers as well. So it's completely up to you. I'd certainly recommend making sure you've had a look around those options before making a decision. And one thing to consider is that you do have a deadline for this. It does change every year, so I can't give you a set date of make sure you do it by this time point. But just making sure that you respond back to say, yes, I want to take that offer. That's my firm choice before the deadline. Otherwise, you may lose your offers. So it's worth just considering that. And hopefully, by this point, you will have seen the universities, get an understanding of where's going to be best for you to study, and you can make that decision from there, really. There are a few alternative options if it doesn't completely go to plan. Applying to university isn't as simple as you send the application off, and if you get in, great. If you're unsuccessful, then that's it. There are other routes into university that you can do. So it's something called UCAS Extra. So this runs from sort of, as you can see, February through to the beginning of July for this particular year, where you can go through that if you don't hold any offers or you've rejected everything. So an example of this might be that you've applied to do sport, but you've had a change of heart and you want to go off and do fine art now. But obviously all of your offers are for sport. So you might reject all of them and sort of not necessarily start it from scratch, but just go and add additional choices on through UCAS Extra. It is one thing that is worth considering if obviously you do change your mind. There's something which hopefully most of you will have heard of. You might not know exactly how it works, but clearing. So as you can see on the screen, clearing runs from sort of the beginning of July through to the 21st of September this year. So that's roughly enrolment time. That's when main clearing is. We've been also lots of the universities do pre-clearing. So for example, now we've been talking to students for the last month in terms of pre-clearing or fast track to clearing, as we call it, of students that maybe they've changed their mind and suddenly thinking, actually, yes, I do want to go to university this year. Or various different circumstances where you can get in touch with universities, secure places, think about options. And it is a possibility that even if you are sat here now thinking, I'm only just deciding now that I want to start in September, there's still a possibility. We've been fielding messages and calls about courses and talking about options and potential offers and that sort of stuff. So do bear that in mind. Obviously, the main clearing thing which you may have sort of seen on the TV is on results day, where if students don't quite get their grades, they can contact other universities from there, ring universities up and try and get into an institution that way as well. So there are plenty of options. I wouldn't say that you need to read up on clearing completely, because fingers crossed, everyone that applies gets their grades and gets into their firm choices. But it's worth just having a bit of an awareness of it, just in case something doesn't quite go right with your grades or such things like that. And then the final one is adjustment. So this works in a slightly different way. As you can see from the dates, it's mainly August, so it's after you've received your results. And if you've met or exceeded the conditions of your firm choice, so if your firm choice is saying we want you to get 120 UCAS points and you get 128, then you can do something called adjustment and change your firm choice to something else. It might be that you haven't applied to a university because you didn't think you would get in because of your predicted grades, but actually come results day, you've surpassed what you thought, you've got that grade and you think, actually, let's try and contact those from there. Obviously, there's lots of ins and outs with those processes as well, so it's worth just doing a bit of research on them. If obviously they apply to you or near the time especially like the clearing and the adjustment ones as well, so nearer to sort of July and August. So the final thing that I'm going to cover really is your personal statement. So this is the one part of your application that you've got a lot of control over. Chances are, obviously you can't physically see people in this presentation, but there will be people sat in this presentation that are doing the same course as you, maybe privy to the same grades as you, or get the same grades as you. So how you can differentiate that is your personal statement. Only yourself, only you can write that personal statement, and hopefully it's a really important part of you getting a place at university. It's 47 lines or 4,000 characters, whichever one you hit first, and it does cut you off mid-word, so it is something to consider. It won't just add on the extra bits because you've got a couple of words left. It will just stop. And to put that into a bit of context, those of you that use Twitter quite a lot, it's roughly about 16 tweets to write about your previous experiences, your hobbies, your interests, your passion for the subject, and basically tell the university why they should offer you a place on that particular course to study with them in the September. In terms of what to include, I would love to have a golden formula that I can say do X, Y, and Z and you will be guaranteed a place. Unfortunately, no one can because it is personal to you. But in terms of what to include, we've got some sort of ideas of things which you may find useful. There's also a lot of information. So we've got, as I mentioned, a lot of information on our website in terms of how to maybe structure a personal statement or sort of how to build it together. There's also useful videos on the UCAS website. So there's one in particular around finding the right formula, so how you can get the most out of it. So certainly doing a bit of research around that, thinking about your personal statement will be beneficial. What we do recommend, so opening paragraphs, talk about why you want to study the course. You want to catch the reader's attention. You want to showcase to them why you want to study the course and draw them in so that they want to keep reading your personal statement. You want your personal statement to stand out to everyone else. You've then got the main body of text. So this is where you put all of your evidence in, your work experience, your interests outside of school or college, relating it to the course that you want to study, the skills that you've got, the passion for the subject. And then finally, you've got your closing sort of statement, your closing comment. So your overall goal of why you want to go to university. This isn't set in stone. This isn't something that on graduation day we will read this back out to you and you have to go and do it. As I mentioned, when I applied to university, I wanted to be a secondary school PE teacher. The fact that I'm stood in front of you today and presenting this presentation tells you that I had a change of mind, I had a change of career. But at the time when I applied for sports science, it showcased to the admissions tutors, it showcased to the academics. I'd thought about the course area, I've got a goal, I knew what I wanted to get out of a degree and where I wanted to go with it. So it can just be a really good indicator that you've done the research properly and that you're going to be a committed student. And like I said, make the statement unique to yourself as you're going through it. In terms of making it stand out, there's quite a few different elements here. And one thing which I would reiterate, obviously in the current situation, you might sit there and think, I can't go out and get work experience. I can't do this because we're sort of in lockdown measures, or I can't go there because it's shut at the minute. We do consider that. So it is something that we're not standing here saying, and universities as well aren't saying you've got to go out and get 100 hours experience because we know you physically can't right now. But think about how you can do that alternatively. So can you do virtual experience? Can you help out in another way so that you are still adding to your application? Obviously, there's things like hobbies and interests. People sometimes think I've not got any work experience, but I play for a football team. How is that going to benefit my application? I can guarantee those of you that are sort of sportsmen or sportswomen, chances are, working as part of the team, you can think of skills and qualities that will be beneficial for you being a student. So working as part of the team, communication. So think about what benefit do I get from doing those hobbies and interests, and also talk about them from a point of view that we know that we want to get to know you as a student. So what interests you, what sort of motivates you as well. Talk about course knowledge. So have you already got stuff that you've done previously? So it might be that you've done an EPQ as part of your studies and you looked into a particular bit of a course area that you're interested in and you want to go on and study in the future. So talk about that as well. And the final point really in terms of skills, hopefully it's a phrase which if you haven't heard before, you will start to hear quite frequently around transferable skills. What we mean by this is skills that every single degree, every job, every walk of life require. So stuff like communication, time management, being able to work individually, but also work as part of a team as well. That's all skills and qualities that will benefit you across any degree that you want to go and study at university. So talk about those. And what we mean by talk about them is don't just say, I've got great communication skills. Back that up. Because anybody can say that they've got great communication skills. But it might be that you work as a team leader at McDonald's and you have to manage customer relations. You have to talk to the staff working in the kitchens on the drive-thru, the staff out in the main part of the restaurant, and manage that, and also have difficult conversations sometimes with people. If you say that, then all of a sudden the person reading your personal statement can look and go, I can see that they've got great communication skills. It's not an empty sentence. They've backed it up. One way to think about it, I know when I did my GCSEs in English, point example or point evidence explain. What have you got? What evidence have you got to back it up, and why is it beneficial? So it might seem like you're going around in a bit of a circle sometimes, but just putting that evidence in there will back up your skills and qualities as you're going throughout your personal statement. So in terms of preparation for this, a few things to consider is that if you are looking at universities and you're thinking, I've not quite got the experience, or I've not quite got enough skills or qualities, can I go out and do them? So that can be something in terms of preparation for writing it, doing a bit of pre-work to make sure that you've got the skills and qualities which are going to be beneficial for you. Get other people to read your personal statement, talk to your friends and family about it. So don't just think I've got to write this myself, I can't have any help. Talk to people that know you well. They'll be able to help you out in terms of identifying skills, identifying how maybe to write a personal statement, or what things to focus on which will be beneficial. Also look on the university websites as well and try and get an understanding of what is beneficial for the course, because it might be that a personal statement for a creative writing course will be completely different to a personal statement for a forensic science course, because it's two different disciplines, it's different sort of styles of learning, there's different styles of student. And final one is to give you time as well. It is something you're not going to do your personal statement in one draft. It takes time. Generally, as a population, as a nation, we are not fantastic at talking positively about ourselves. You probably know this. You probably think of examples where you've not necessarily put yourself down, but you've not sold yourself. You've not said, yes, I am absolutely fantastic and amazing at this. You'll say, yes, I'm all right at it, or I'm good at it. So it does take some drafts. It also takes some drafts to condense the information down so that you get the most out of the personal statement as well. So give yourself the time to do it. Please, please, please do not leave this to a week before whatever deadline, your internal deadline, if you're at school or college. Give yourself time. Even if it's that you do a couple of drafts, you put it down for a week, you forget about it, and you come back to it, just so that hopefully you can really showcase yourself in the best possible light in that personal statement. Because I can guarantee everyone sat here has got skills and qualities that will get them a fantastic personal statement and a place at university. It's just getting them down onto paper, really. So a few final top tips before we sort of go to the Q&A section of this presentation. Use all the space provided. As I mentioned, it's an opportunity to sell yourself, to really showcase yourself. And I don't just mean use the 4,000 characters. Make sure that every sentence is a selling point. Every sentence is going to get a tick on that personal statement. If you read back through it and it's a sentence and you think that's not really promoting me, it's not really showcasing any skills, think, can I take it out? Can I reword it so that it is? Make sure that the content is relevant to the course that you're applying for. Obviously, it might be, like I mentioned, you might not have work experience in that area, and that is okay, but try to avoid writing a whole personal statement about history if you're not applying for history. Think about how you can take the transferable skills out of those different areas and talk about those, not necessarily the specifics of the course, if you haven't got that experience. Think about what universities are looking for from students. Generally, universities, they want to know that you're committed to the course. They want to know that you're going to be turning up in December to the 9 a.m. lecture when it's not too great. They want to know that you're passionate about it, and also that you want to make a difference in that subject area, so that you've not just picked a course out at random, that actually you are motivated to be on it. As I mentioned, proofread your personal statement. The last thing that you want is a fantastic personal statement, but in the first sentence you've got a spelling mistake and you've missed a capital letter. Think about it like a pre-entry test, that we're going to be looking through your personal statement and judging your style of writing, judging your spelling and grammar. It's not officially graded, but we do look at it, so do consider that. And the final tip I've got is to save a copy of your statement. I did not do this, so I applied to university, I didn't save a copy of my personal statement, and then when I went off to apply for my PGCE, I had to write my statement completely again. So save a copy of it. It will come in handy, not just if you're applying for future courses, but if you're applying for any jobs, you've then got a personal statement which talks about your skills and qualities and what you can offer to a certain role, and you can just adapt that as you go, rather than having to start from scratch further down the line as well. So that's it in terms of the slides that I wanted to go through and sort of talk around making the best application. You can see the contact details on there, so I've left our schools and colleges liaison team contact details on there. No doubt throughout today as well, you'll get a lot of other contact details in terms of how to get in touch with your university after today. One thing as well, which I will mention, so we have got a specific email address for these open days. So if you do have any questions that either don't get answered as part of the Q&A, or maybe you go away and think about it tonight or tomorrow or sort of later in the week, and you think, I wish I'd asked that, do email us. So it's opendays@derby.ac.uk. So do get in touch that way as well. That's pretty much it in terms of what I wanted to cover from those individual sections. What I'm going to do now, so we're going to open up the Q&A. The Q&A chat is closed, so hopefully you've had a chance to submit your questions as we're going through. What we're going to do now is just answer a few of those between either myself or, like I mentioned, Lily and Laura from the admissions team as well.
Okay, thank you, Alex. We've had lots of questions come through, so we're going to start going through them now. As Alex said, if we haven't managed to get through to your questions, we will be putting an email address in the chat function so you can follow up any questions there. So we've got Lily and Laura have been answering some of the questions throughout the chat as well, so you'll be able to see those on the right hand side. So the first question, and I think Alex, you could probably pick this one up. Okay. Do you write one personal statement for the different universities that you are applying for?
So that is a great question. It is something which you do only submit one personal statement for your whole application. So that will go off to every university. There are a few considerations to this. So obviously each university may have slightly different course titles, slightly different course content. So what we do say is that if you are applying for similar courses, so it might be that it's called sport and exercise science at one university or physical activity and sport at another, try to avoid sort of using specifics. So we do say try to avoid pointing out a particular university's qualities or facilities, because other universities will see that. I'm sure you wouldn't, but we have sort of heard of examples in the past where someone has spent their personal statement talking very positively about one university, and the other universities that they would have applied to probably look at that and go, well, if they love that university so much, why have they applied to us? So yeah, you do only get to submit one personal statement. It is something that if you are thinking either about applying to different course areas across your options, or you are thinking about applying to joint honours, so where you can combine two subjects, you do have to take a bit of extra consideration with that, just because, as I mentioned, if you're applying for biology and then geology at two different, you want to showcase that you're interested in both areas. So one way that we've suggested of doing that is as I've mentioned, talk about the transferable skills rather than specifics to that course area. So hopefully your personal statement isn't biased towards either a particular course or a particular university. If it is joint honours, then obviously that's slightly different because you're combining subjects. So you do want to talk about your passions, but you don't want it to come across like you're particularly you're only interested in one area or one university. So yeah, unfortunately, you can only submit one personal statement. So that's why sometimes it takes a bit of extra time to make sure you get the right balance in your personal statement, so that you aren't particularly favouring one university or a particular course, really. So.
Okay, great. Thanks, Alex. Claire has asked, I've been able to get the grades this summer to the coronavirus. Would I still be considered if I applied for clearing, or do I need to sit A-level exams first? Laura, can you take that one?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Claire. So we would still encourage you to apply. What we do over clearing is we look at whether we're going to reduce any of our entry criteria. So the reason I say I encourage you to apply now is because we haven't set that criteria as yet. So we look at a variety of options. That could include, if you haven't quite got the points of the course you're interested in, if we don't lower the entry criteria, we could look at a foundation degree, access programs. There's a variety of other options out there. So I'd really recommend you submit your application, follow all the tips Alex has given in the application process, and then we'll have a complete profile from you that we will assess based on grades when they come through to us.
Okay, that's great, Laura. I know some people as well that I've been speaking to over the past few weeks are worried about the lack of work experience that they've been able to get because of the coronavirus. So some people can't go into schools and some people can't go into hospitals for obvious reasons. Is that going to impact them on their application, and what can they put in their personal statement instead?
Okay, yeah, so we are really trying to offer the most flexible approach we can this year, because obviously this is completely unknown circumstances. So the academic teams like to see the passion and the drive for the subject that you're applying for. So if you can evidence through your application your ability to engage in that industry, what you'd perhaps like to go on to do to end up ultimately working in that, so that they can read from your application that the passion and the drive that you've got and the commitment that you're prepared to show for it. They'll judge that in the same way that they would experience. Even if there's some opportunity to get some unpaid shadowing sessions, a lot of businesses will offer that. I mean, whether obviously with current situations that's available, but it's just another option that we've looked at in the past as well.
Great, thanks, Laura. If I receive the offer and accept it, do I need to submit another choice through UCAS? How does this work? Lily, can you answer that one?
Oh. Sorry, it's the mute button. So if you've accepted your offer through UCAS, that's fine, that's all you need to do. If it's a different choice, then you might want to look at going through clearing or something at a later date. I don't know if Laura, if you've got anything you wanted to add to it, or?
Yeah, sure. So it depends on how many choices you've submitted as well. So like Alex explained, there's a couple of options with UCAS. You can open an account and submit one choice, or you can go up to the 5 maximum. If you take the 5 maximum, there's a variety of UCAS dates, so please check out the UCAS website probably from about August onwards for the deadline dates for next cycle. And what they will explain is when you apply, what dates you have to make your decisions by. So for example, if you submit the maximum 5 choices, as the first deadline approaches, you need to make 1 firm and 1 insurance choice. The other choices, if you've got 5 offers back, those 3 that remain that are not firm or insurance will drop off. And then there's a variety of other deadline dates, but you can continue to hold 1 firm, 1 insurance, and you can swap those about as well if you needed to at a later date across universities or within the university. You'd need to just contact the relevant uni and UCAS to do that.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Laura. We've got a question from Emily, who looks like she wants to do fine art. How much experience would you recommend for fine art? I'm presuming Emily means work experience. Lily?
So I think for fine art, we would want to see a portfolio of the work, and we'd have a look at that. I'm not sure for actual work experience. I think Laura might know a bit more about that one as well.
Yeah, sure, I can dip in. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Lily. It's a creative course, so the admissions team and the academics like to see the visual creative elements for within an electronic portfolio. In terms of experience, and it's pretty standard across the University of Derby, we do look for around 2 weeks experience across all courses, and as I say, that can be a variety of things, whether that's shadowing experience, paid work, volunteering, all those kind of things are also included. So yeah, it's about sort of selling yourself, you know, writing all the different options down in your personal statement. Do you support anybody, any friends? What kind of platforms do you use? All those kind of tools and skills that you would utilise in that industry. That'd be really helpful.
Great, some good advice, thank you. There's some questions about interviews. If your courses require an interview, what way does the offers process work? There's an example here that someone's put, do you go to all that have offered and then you can narrow it down to your chosen 2 and hope for the best?
I'll take that one as well, because the interviews tend to sit more in my portfolio, so I'll probably best place to answer that one. So what we do at the University of Derby is we start interviewing from October onwards, so we always have a huge amount of interviews going on, and we're very careful around when we schedule those so that we make sure everybody who applies by the first deadline, which was the 15th of January, we need to make sure that they have their choices by the end of March to enable them to make all the right choices and have the offers back from the unis. Again, check the UCAS website for next year's dates just to be sure, but that's this cycle. So what we would do is give you the offer following your interview if you are successful on that day, and then you have plenty of time up until that deadline date to then accept that or reject that offer. And if you are applying quite close to that deadline, then you just need to be prepared to sort of make a bit of a quick response to us, but we will ensure we give you the offers in time for you to make your choices.
Great, thanks Laura. And on the interviews, I know a lot of people will have questions about what form they take. Are they a formal interview? Are they one-to-one? Are they group interviews? Will they have to do tasks? Can you give a bit more information on the types of interview that we run at the university?
Yeah, of course. And again, this is an area that there's been a lot of change recently with the current circumstances. So historically, it's been an on-campus interview, which it's a really good opportunity for you to come into campus, see all the facilities, and you get to see probably a little bit more behind the scenes than you would on a standard open day as well. The interviews are bespoke to the programme, so they can differ quite a lot between programmes. Let's take one of them for health and social care, for example. We would show you the nursing wards, we'd show you the immersive suite. So we have lots of technology that we would use. If it's an arts-based programme, it would probably be at one of our campuses, Markeaton Street, where there's all of the equipment that you'd need bespoke to that programme. So generally, the top level itinerary for the interview days is that everybody arrives together and you have a bit of a talk by the academic team, a bit of an overview of the programme, and then you get the opportunity to go off into groups, and usually some student ambassadors will show you around the facilities, and then what we do is we take people off one by one for their individual interview sessions. And again, how that looks will differ per programme, it's likely to be 1 or 2 people interviewing you, and that could be an academic along with maybe a placement provider if the course offers placements, so that they can talk to you about what they would expect as well, and you can get a feel for how that works. So yeah, I think that covers it.
Yeah, that does, thank you. And we've had another question that's just come in about interviews. Do all courses have interviews? For example, does an English course, would they require an interview, or is it just certain courses?
So it is just certain courses, and they're all advertised on UCAS whether they are an interviewing one or not. The simple way to look at it is if it's a professional based course generally. So if you're going to go and work in education or health and social care, we have external regulations we need to meet, and that is part of the interview process. That's why that exists. The exception to that is the creative courses, where it's just a fantastic opportunity for people to showcase their work and their portfolios. An interview allows you to display the visual work, so that's a really useful opportunity to do that in an interview.
Great, thanks, Laura. We've had a question about personal statements, and Alex referred to the line limit in his presentation. Are the lines in between paragraphs included with the 47 lines limit?
I believe they're not. So how the personal statement works is when you submit it onto the UCAS website, it takes out all formatting. So it is one of those that when sort of you go to submit the application on the UCAS website, it does just look like a block of text. Obviously, it will be something that's best practice to do it on a word processing tool so that you can maybe see the individual sections, just so that when you're writing it, you can think about the structure and how you want to lay it out. But then when you put it through UCAS, it does convert it slightly. One thing as well to consider when you do submit on the UCAS website, on their section, it doesn't have spell checker as well. So obviously we would recommend beforehand do it on word processing, where making sure you go through, check all the spelling, check the formatting. Obviously you can copy it and paste it into the box on UCAS, and then just double checking that everything's copied across properly. So scrolling down to the bottom and checking that the final sentence or the final part of it is what you wanted. But certainly, by all means, when you are sort of preparing it and you're doing your first couple of drafts, find a way that suits you best. I know some people separate out every sentence, separate out the paragraphs, just to try and make it so that it's easier to proofread, it's easier to sort of revise when you're going through the drafts. But yeah, when you submit it, it does sort of remove all of that formatting. So it's just a general sort of template on UCAS, really.
Great, thanks, Alex. And we've just got one final question. I know Lily and Laura have both been busy responding to your questions in the text as well. So I'm hoping that we've got through all of the questions. Like Alex said and I said, and we're going to just pop an email address into this chat for any further questions, or if you've got further inquiries. But the final question again relates to interviews, so I'm going to throw it to you, Laura. If I apply for a joint honours degree, would I have to have an interview for each subject?
Okay, thank you. So if the individual subjects interview, then yes. So you could, depending on the subjects you apply for, you could end up with interviews, 2 separate interviews on both, or if it's just one subject that interviews, it'll just be the one interview.
Great, fantastic. Thank you very much, Laura and Lily and Alex, for answering all those questions. I think we've got through them all. Yep, great. So I'm now just going to hand back to Alex just to close the session. Thank you, Alex.
Perfect, thanks, Hannah. Basically, yeah, so as we mentioned, thanks for coming along and listening to the presentation. Hopefully you found it useful in terms of either giving you some insight in terms of your current application, or even just starting the ball rolling with it. Like we said, it is something that does take a bit of time, so do go away, do a bit of research on it. As we said, if you've got any further questions after today, by all means get in touch with us. If you do have anything specific as well, do email through to the teams at university. So whether it's the admissions team or whether it's having a chat with academics in talks later, or throughout the next couple of days, if there's anything specifically that you want to focus on as well. Aside from that, thank you for coming along and attending. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully you'll go pop into some of our other sessions throughout the next 3 days that we are offering for different subject areas as well. So thanks a lot.